Wore the shirt once already. Don't really care. It's contextually relevant, and it's Gregg Popovich. What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a nice week as we head towards this Memorial Day weekend. Congrats. Usually, as you know, got Selena alongside my side, but every now and then we decide to go the solo route. So today, one of the solo routes for me. But before we get into story time, be sure to do all those fun things we talk about, like, comment, follow, and subscribe. Now, if you're watching this as a resident of San Antonio, you don't need me to get into who Gregg Popovich is. Now, if you're watching this not as a basketball fan necessarily or a resident of San Antonio, Gregg Popovich is, like I mentioned before, probably, arguably, depending on who you talk to in town here, the greatest coach in the history of the NBA. Won just about every single, or has achieved every single record you can possibly achieve. 5 championships along the way. The guy is an icon, but maybe the thing he's known for the most, at least on a broader scale, is how he interacts with the media. And I guess that's kind of one way to put it. Interaction, if you want to call it that, it's different. It's usually very short. It's usually very forward, succinct, right to the point. If you're in the media, you got to get to the point because he's only going to give you a brief little point in response. And for a lot of people, they kind of cherish that moment of when he kind of has a little bit of a snarky clapback at a reporter. They just kind of take it in and say, hey, you know what? Gregg Popovich got the best of me. I officially made it. Where this story starts is a couple of years removed now, November 2019, where Spurs had a home game against the Boston Celtics on a weekend, Saturday, Sunday game. Parents taking their kids out for a nice weekend, hoping to go see the Spurs, face a good team, and come away with a win. A nice little weekend treat. It didn't work out that way. In fact, the Spurs at the time had one of their worst losses of the season, which ultimately set off a tailspin of like 8 losses in a row. The story, of course, is the fact that this was a rough day all the way around. And the thing with Pop is, even on the good days, I mean, this is a 5-time champion over here. So even on the good days, he's not going to seem like he's in the best of moods, even if you want to call that, to put it lightly. On a day where they get blown out essentially in every facet of the basketball game, goes without saying, not particularly good. This was actually my first time covering a San Antonio Spurs game in San Antonio. Of course, when you're new to the area, relatively speaking, that's the name you hear about. And all the stuff you see on TV, him being very snarky, again, or whatever terminology I used earlier. And that's sort of the thing you're anticipating once you get inside of the Spurs locker room, if you will. And you're just hoping, hey, whatever I ask today, hopefully it doesn't get shut down too hard. Well, I, of course, had that mindset and went into the locker room after a blowout loss. And the way the media kind of circles around, the way it goes is that everyone kind of gathers up and then they bring the player or the coach, the Spurs do, bring them out to you. So like think of maybe like a horseshoe shape where you got probably like 15, 20 media members who know the deal, certainly more than me. So one thing I do know though is like I'm at like the front of that horseshoe, if you will. So when he gets out there, I'm gonna be right there front and center asking him the question. So Pop comes out. And Pop, not in the best of moods, expectedly so. He comes out to all of us and just silence. Just silence, because everyone's like, who's gonna be the first question to ask, first guy to ask a question here? Who's ready to take the bullet? That particular instance, that was me. I'm like, you know what? I'm here now. We're gonna ask this question. We're gonna see how it goes. This is the first question at the first Spurs game I have ever covered working in San Antonio, and it went a little something like this.
They got into the paint tonight, 60-plus points. How did they do it so effectively? Well, that's a silly question. I mean, they did it. They were great.
And with that, I was officially initiated as a media member in San Antonio, if you want to call it that. I think being naive probably was the best thing I possibly could have done there. I think being naive probably was the best thing I could have done there in that situation, because everyone who had been there had talked to the guy before. They knew what it was. They knew he wasn't talking. Don't even try to be too crafty with it. I'm just gonna try and ask whatever I can out of it. And I actually asked 2 more questions, and he was pretty receptive to it. I don't know if he was kind of like, hey, all right, he took a punch, I'm ready to give him something now, or he just was, I don't know what it was. Maybe he just felt bad for me, which is probably the realistic scenario. But the way I see it is some of the great media members of all time have been shut down by good old Gregg Popovich along the way. So if that some small semblance puts me in that same category as some of the greats to ever do it, you know what? Sign me up. Sign me up. I will gladly take that very exaggerated crown, I would say, on my behalf. And maybe a couple times here and there after that, I got a little bit of brevity, if you will, so to speak, from him. But largely, the biggest punch that I took happened to be the first one. So for whatever that is worth, maybe it's worth something. I don't know. That said, shout out to Pop, one of the good guys in the business, for as much as he seems to give off the vibe with the media as much as he does. He's a good guy. He's aware of what it is. And with that said, that wraps up Story Time with Casey on a Friday. Maybe we'll do more of these, I don't know. Be sure to hang out with us again. Check out some of our previous videos in the link below. Like, comment, follow, subscribe, all those fun things. And be sure to come back next week. Talk to you then. Bye.